Below are 12 12-hour clocks with the numbers listed from 1 to 144. This is the source of number symbolism and the value the Luciferian Illuminati serpent think is assign. The more symbolism a certain face produces, the stronger and more important is the number used. Take time to study the clocks and their coinciding number values. For instance, one strong reason for the first day of creation, according to the Hebrew calendar, is September 11th is that it coincides with the number of the deity, which is 15, but on the 10th clock face, this coincides with the number 111. Therefore, 111 days from the end of the year is but another reference to the demonic entity placing yet another hidden symbol in the mix. Clock 1 to 6 faces, clock 7 to 12 faces. Imagine for a moment that the whole of human history is one 24-hour day or time of the Lord, Lucifer. Then all we have to do to find out how long each hour lasts in literal years is divide the total amount of actual years by 24 hours. We must use the Illuminati Luciferian number that they assign to how old the world is, simply because Lucifer created everything. Everything is of this entity and therefore we will do the calculations on its timeline. These serpent thinkers follow the Hebrew calendar. The Lucifer mindset invented the Hebrew calendar, which celebrated its 6,000th year on September 11, 1999. So we divide 6,000 by 24 hours and we get 250 years per hour. The empire of the day is the United States of America. To find out the significance in the date that the USA became a country, we simply subtract 250 years from 6,000, in 1999, and we have a total of 1750 AD. 4,000 years BC and 1750 years AD. Taking into account that the Gregorian calendar skipped 12 years in its conception and indoctrination into the world scheme of things, this takes us up to 1762 AD. Then if you add the 24th hour to this new total you get 2012 AD. Curious, isn't it, how the year 2012 just keeps popping up all over the place as some sort of pivotal year. The Luciferian serpent agenda is going to reaching its self-proclaimed moment of glory somewhere near this date. But let's try this one on for size. Let's say the United States is the last empire to fulfill the 23rd hour of death in the span of the deity. Let's take the year 1776 AD plus 4,000 years BC, which equals 5,776 years. Now divide 5,776 years by 23 hours, up to that point in history, and you get 251.1 years per hour on the 24-hour clock. Add 251.1 years to 5,776 and you get a total of 6,027.1 AD. Now subtract the 12 years of skipped Gregorian calendar years and you arrive at the year 6015 or 2015 AD. Here you see the number 15, the number of the deity, and the number 20, the number of total control, because 20 coincides with 8. The Luciferian Christian Bible, however, speaks of what this mindset is going to do in the last moments before it declares itself to be the Messiah within the New World Order of things. It states in Matthew 24:21 and 22 of the New Testament that, "Then shall be great tribulation such as was not from the beginning of the world to this time. And except those days be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened." And yet verse 27 states, "For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." So here you see that Lucifer wrote that it's going to shorten the days of the coming of the Son of Man, the return of the Messiah. So, by the second set of calculations, the year of the Messianic age should come by 2015 or sooner. Let's do a little jousting with this year 2015 to see how much symbolism might be attached to it. Add 20 and 15 equals 35. 35 minutes coincides with 7 hours on the 24-hour clock. 7 is the number of completion. If you let 20 be the number of total control 8 and add it to 15 you get 23, the number of death. If 15 is 3 and you add it to 20 you get 23 again, the number of death. How about substituting both the 20 and the 15? This would be 8 plus 3 equals 11, again the number of death. Kind of bizarre, but that's just the flippy way the Luciferian mind thinks. It really is a dumb paper dragon type of entity, and this is the extent of its brilliance. On the 24-hour clock just below I demonstrate yet another take on determining the year of the serpent thinker and the year that it will attempt to declare its hideous kingship on this planet. What it boils down to is that the USA is the monster state used by the demonic thinkers to use the energy of the beast, which is oil, the lion, to cause war and blood to pour from the veins of humanity. This is why Revelation 6:5 and 6 in the Luciferian Christian Bible says he opened the third seal and lo, a black horse, he that sat upon him had a pair of balances in his hand. I heard a voice say, heard not the oil and the wine. This little bit of serpent writing is referring to the times of tribulation in the world. So piously the serpent entity states that a balancing or judgment is going to be meted out. This is a reference to the horrors that the reptilian Illuminati thinkers will help to manifest in the ring of fire which will unfold in the Pacific Ocean on both sides of the equator. The equator is the equalizer or balances of judgment to be used by the god of judgment, Lucifer, in the next few years. There is a warning, however, do not hurt the oil and the wine. This is the energy and the drink of the mighty men of the earth, the elect of God. The Rosebush family that pierces. So just what sort of serpent thinkers will be used in these days to protect the oil and the wine? Back in the 1920s, a pretty and rich socialite lady named Pauline Pierce was married to Marvin Pierce. Marvin was the publisher of Red Book and McCall's magazines. Pauline was described by W Magazine as beautiful, fabulous, critical and meddling. A former beauty from Ohio with extravagant tastes. Pauline was a direct descendant of President Franklin Pierce Sr., the 14th President of the USA, who was likewise a descendant of Thomas Percy, who tried to blow up the British Parliament and King James I. Pauline had 2 young children, ages 3 and 4, when she decided to have some fun by leaving her children and husband in the States and heading off to France. Once there, she spent time with her friend Nellie O'Hara and Frank Harris. Frank Harris also had a friend who was none other than Aleister Crowley, the head, at that time, of the satanic organization known as the OTO, the Ordo Templis Orientis, or the Order of the Temple of the Orient. This excursion to France took place in 1924, the very same year that Aleister Crowley claims to have first experienced his ECL or EROTO-COMOTOSE lucidity. In this erotic comatose state, which was entered into through regulated sexual exhaustion, one could supposedly commune with the most holy Lord God, maker of heaven and earth. As I've previously pointed out, this is Lucifer. This erotic comatose state was reached by sexual exhaustion, where climax after climax causes the person climaxing to eventually fall asleep. They would then be sexually aroused, but as soon as they would begin to awaken, they would be allowed to fall asleep again. This would continue until they were neither awake nor asleep, but in a comatose sort of state of consciousness. This could continue until the participant was awakened by the sex act, or would continue until death occurred. The most favorable death occurring during orgasm. Aleister also had a favorite sex positions called PVN, which supposedly referred to a Latin phrase meaning by way of the infernal entrance. To experience this erotic comatose state, Aleister Crowley would need assistance. He was a bisexual person, and therefore it is not at all unlikely that all 3 of his comrades were assisting him in reaching this desired erotic zone. This all happened in 1924. In early October 1924, Pauline returned to the USA to her children and husband Marvin. Exactly 9 months later, she gave birth to a daughter whom they named Barbara Pierce. Barbara was born on June 8, 1925, and would go on to marry the 41st President of the United States, George Bush Sr. The symbolism here is incredible. This Pierce connection to the Bush family is referring to the piercing of the Messiah of the crucifixion myth of Jesus. Jesus, soothsayer, was supposedly pierced in the side with a sword, S-word of the serpent, of a Roman soldier. He was flogged till his flesh was ripped to shreds. Flog equals golf, the sport of Freemasonry, Scotland. Scot equals docs, or talk, and the money symbol money talks. He was pierced in his head with the crown of thorns. This is all symbolism for how the Pierce and Bush presidential serpent-thinking bloodline families would come together to be used in the order of the Rosebush, which will now pierce those who pierced him. Those who crucified him are the folks who don't believe in him. Or another way of saying it, those who don't believe in him are the less desirable people on the planet who are soon going to be sacrificed. Even as they are being sacrificed by the thousands daily in Africa, India, China, and every poor region of every continent on Earth. Aleister Crowley used to describe himself as the Great Beast 666, and friends used to call him AC, think electrical alternating current here. This little exercise in erotic comatose lucidity was referred to as sex magic. It is this sexual manipulation that is completely akin to the spirit of the Kabbalistic knowledge of ancient times. Hence the name Ordo Templis Orientis, or Order of the Temple of the Eastern Star, the ancient wisdom of the kings of the East. Kabbalism is knowing how to manipulate electrical energy, and through this sex magic ritual, the exact same manipulation understanding is revealed. Seeing that Pauline came back to the USA and exactly 9 months later she had a baby, it is not at all inconceivable that she gave birth to the baby of Aleister Crowley. Look at the photographs below and consider which man might be the father of Barbara Bush, née Pierce. Here's Barbara and Crowley side by side. Bush Crowley, here's Crowley, Bush and Marvin Pierce, the man who raised Barbara and could well be her father. Bush Crowley Pierce, here's a photograph of Pauline Pierce, who really was a lovely looking woman. Pauline Pierce, this photograph shows Pauline Pierce holding her grandchild George W. Bush. Pauline Pierce holding George W. Bush. The similar facial characteristics between Aleister Crowley and Barbara are undeniable. But here's what we should really be considering. What was a rich socialite woman who was a direct descendant of a president of the USA doing in France, associating with one of the 20th century's most prominent Satanists? She was there, and it is known for certain that they were together during her excursion looking for excitement. I doubt they were playing checkers. Keep in mind that everything that I write on this site is referring to the demonic entity who is really in control. So let's take a look at a few dates that this entity, who is the Luciferian mindset, could totally control from a symbolic point of view. Now, if you don't acknowledge that there is such a mind as the Luciferian entity, then none of this will be of any value to you. On the other hand, if you are aware that there is some sort of corrupt entity in this 3D existence we're experiencing, then this examination of dates and numbers will mean something. The date of Barbara Pierce's birth was June 8, 1925. 8 is the number of complete control, and this child would be used to marry into and give birth to the family which would be in power when the agenda for total human domination would play itself out. This is the order of the rose of which George Bush Sr. is and has been the main orchestrator for half a century. If you look at the light chart above and go to the 20 hour on this clock, you'll notice that 20 coincides with 8. Therefore, 20 is also the number, symbolically, of total control. It is this last century, the 20th century, which plunged the whole world into the seductions of the Luciferian web of deceit. The 20th century totally took control of humanity. The whole world is so totally demonic in its reasoning and way of living that we are totally convinced that this is the way things should be. Another date to consider is the date of Pauline Pierce's death and the manner in which she died. She was killed while riding in the car driven by her husband Marvin. They hit a stone wall as he reached for a cup of coffee about to spill. A stone wall is a rock wall and is symbolic of the Lucifer entity described above and on page 16. The date of her death was September 23, 1949. September is the 9th month of the year, the number associated with the fall, as in 9/11. 23 coincides with the number 11 on the 24-hour clock and is therefore also the number of death, but with even stronger intent as it is the last hour before midnight. The year 1949 is 7 by 7, or the number of completion. 19 is also coinciding with 7 on the 24-hour clock. All this can be controlled by the Luciferian entity. And all this was controlled in this manner because this was truly one of the most important births, from a demonic point of view, in modern times. How much suffering has been caused by the spirit of this woman, and probably that of Aleister Crowley, as she eventually married the father of and gave birth to the entity who would go on to become President of the United States of America.